Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of this F1 24 driver career mode with myself driving for Sauber in our rookie season. If you did miss the last episode where we headed to Kota for the American Grand Prix, George Russell claimed victory in both the sprint and the main Grand Prix. It was Lewis Hamilton who finished P2 to make it a Mercedes 1-2 after being overtaken by his teammates on the final lap of the Grand Prix to have that win taken away from him after he led for the majority of the race. Fernando Alonso made it back-to-back podiums in P3, and it was very unfortunate what happened to myself on the final lap. We were running just outside the points. It wasn't going to be a day for us to get points, and just a lapse of concentration resulted us spinning in front of the remainder of the field and unfortunately crossing the line in P18 with Lando Norris, one of the championship favourites, not finishing the Grand Prix after an engine failure. So Max Verstappen ended up extending his championship lead to 12 points over Lando Norris, and we're going to go straight away into more engine developments that we're going to be trying to save. We're going to start with some durability here, and we're going to save the gearbox improved materials upgrade, the gearbox reliability testing upgrade, and the internal combustion engine improved materials upgrade as well. So three pretty big upgrades that we've saved there. So we've still got a while to go before we can say that we've saved everything that we've upgraded so far, but we've got a few rounds still to go before we can start to worry about it. So we're going to move into our specialist, the manufacturing expert, 5 laps with different engine components, the wind tunnel engineer, DRS for 55 seconds, the power unit consultant, finish better than our teammates in the Grand Prix, material fabrication planner, 6 laps without penalties or warnings. And we're going to take a look here at the new developments we've got on the car. So this weekend we have got a fuel tank positioning upgrade, rear floor under tray, and also we've got listed on this upgrade list the upgrades that we have managed to save as well. So I've only just realized that the upgrades we do end up saving get added to this list before each race weekend. We're going to take a look at the R&D here. McLaren are fastest car on the grid at the moment, very closely followed by Mercedes Formula 1 team. Then it was a small gap to Aston Martin with Red Bull and Ferrari very close behind them. Bit of a gap to Sauber ourselves. We lead essentially the former B pack ahead of Williams, Haas, RB and Alpine. You can also see that everyone is now in an upgrade saving mode. No one has really brought in any upgrades for Mexico, so it's pretty much straight lining across the field, and I doubt there's going to be very many improvements to car performances across the field for the remainder of the season as we head straight into qualifying.
What an atmosphere we've got. The fans have been here since dawn, and the stadium, the Faro Sol, is absolutely heaving. We're about to get set to set the grid for tomorrow's Grand Prix. It's qualifying day here in Mexico City.
And unfortunately, heading into this session, we will be taking an engine penalty, a 10-place penalty for a new internal combustion engine. So wherever we qualify, we will be starting 10 places back. And you'll see here coming down the straight to start our first flying lap, we're going to get a really good tow from Kevin Magnussen, actually following him off the racing line to try and maximize the slipstream that we can get in coming through the turns 1, 2, 3 complex here, keeping it nice and tidy, and hopefully that slipstream coming into effect. And as we cross the line on our first flying lap, we will be qualifying P1 for our first flying lap here, so quite unexpected, to be honest. I knew the slipstream was going to be pretty good, and I was not expecting it to be that good. That was our only flying lap of the session. Hamilton fastens Q1 by 200s, George Russell in P2, Oscar Piastri in P3 600s behind, myself in P7 2/10ths back, and our teammate Bottas makes it through into the next session sitting P11. He was 4/10ths behind as we make a mistake here, a very big mistake going into turn 4, and so that's going to cost us a massive amount of time. And rounding the final corner to come to the end of our first flying lap here on a set of scrub tyres, remember as well, scrub tyres for this first flying lap, and that is only going to put us P9 at the moment, so definitely need to improve on this one. And coming around the corner here to finish our next flying lap, this is on a set of brand new tyres, and that is going to be a 1.4 second improvement to put us P7, so a nice big jump there. And starting our flying lap, but on this is still the same set of new tyres, so we've done a cooldown lap to charge the battery up, and we are getting once again a nice slipstream here, and this time it is going to be Stroll that's going to give us a slipstream once again, moving over off the racing line to try and maximise the slipstream. You can see that it's nearly about 0.3 of a second I gained down the straight, but we're going to lose it all as I've really ruined the racing line going through the turns 1, 2, 3 complex. And as we round the final corner to complete our final flying lap, it is only going to be good enough for P8 in the end. Hamilton fastest in Q2 by a tenth to Oscar Piastri. George Russell P3 2/10 back. Myself P8 3/10 back. And knocked out in Q2 Bottas by only 9,000ths of a second. Then Stroll, Hulkenberg, Perez out in the second part of qualifying for his home Grand Prix, and Yuki Tsunoda is the final driver knocked out. And we're only going to do the one flying lap here. We've only got one set of brand new tyres, so we're going to round the final corner in Q3, and it is going to be P10. It was, in the end, a little bit of a scruffy lap, so I wasn't really expecting too much, but George Russell on pole position by 7/10 of a second. An absolute mega lap from him to get that sort of margin to his teammate Hamilton in P2, so it's a Mercedes front row lockout. Max Verstappen in P3, so he's 8/10 back, and myself in P10 after a scruffy lap.
Back in the 60s, Mexico City would host the season-ending race, a party of motor racing. Well, we might not host the finale now, but Mexico hosts a party nonetheless. So welcome to the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez for the Mexico City Grand Prix. We're a long way above sea level here in Mexico today, which could pose some cooling issues for the cars as they make their way around this 2.6-mile lap. 17 corners with top speeds in excess of 220 miles per hour, and watch out for potential overtaking into turns 1 and 4. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. What a qualifying yesterday for George Russell. He'll start today's race from pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Fernando Alonso, Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, Albon, Bottas, Stroll, Hamilton, Hulkenberg, Verstappen, Perez, Tsunoda, Sainz, Magnussen, Ricciardo, Gasly, Ocon, Sargent, and Lightning. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track.
Right, back of the grid. I mean, there is literally only one direction we can go from here, so try and move forward and see if we can get something out of it.
As Mark was saying, there's only one way to go, and that is going up. So we're going to be trying to see just how far we can get up the field. Points would be absolutely amazing, but starting last, there is a lot to go right for us today. And just looking at the strategy there, I was having to play with it, but in the end, we're going to stick with the 16 laps on the medium and then off to the hards as it's lights out and we're off for the Mexican Grand Prix. We've had a little bit of wheel spin and it's going to really push us back there. You're going to see the rest of the field all slipstreaming each other down into turn 1, which is going to allow them to pull away just a little bit here from us. So we're going to be trying to go around the outside. We lined ourselves up to go around the outside. Sargent actually swerves back to the racing line. Kind of spooks me off a little bit. We're going to send it down the inside of Yuki Tsunoda. I think at that point in the moment, we're nearly 4 wide, I would say, but we've made up plenty of positions there. We got a warning for the collision with Perez as I sent it in, not expecting him to pretty much come to a near complete stop on the apex of turn 2 there, and we're going to send it into turn 4, and it was still side by side with the RB there of Yuki Tsunoda, and that is going to be the position done. Lance Stroll tries to push Perez out wide, but in the end just ruins his run, which is going to allow us to try and go around the outside here of the Canadian driver, and we're going to send it into this fast S section, and that is going to be us now up into P13. So we've had a mega, essentially just a first sector of this Grand Prix. Coming on here onto the second lap of the race, I have forgotten to turn my ERS off, so you can see I've dumped it all the way down to only 10%. I've now realized what I've done, and I've turned it off, so I'm going to try and make this worthwhile by going around the outside of turn 1 to Sergio Perez. It's going to give me the inside for turn 2 and squeeze him out turn 3 on the apex there. And I'm not even going to deploy anything to try and help me get out of the corner there. I'm just going to turn it off and try and bank up a heap of charge again on this lap here, as we could see a change of the lead now as Lando Norris looks to go around the outside just as we did only the lap prior on Charles Leclerc here. So it's McLaren versus Ferrari at the front of the grid with Fernando Alonso sitting in at P3, but now he's going to have the DRS on Charles Leclerc, who again was leading, so he's not going to have DRS in this second part of this straight, and Fernando is going to go around the outside at turn 4, give him the inside for turn 5, and is he going to be able to get the traction down? No, he doesn't. Charles Leclerc just holds on to P2, and he'll have to try again later on into the race. While that was all going on, Max Verstappen has made a move on the Haas there of Nico Hulkenberg, I believe it may be, and that is going to be a nearly an identical move to what Lando Norris has just done, and this time Max Verstappen will get the move done, and that is him further up into the points now to try and do a bit of damage control after a bit of a poor qualifying in qualifying 3 for himself. And for ourselves, we're going to send it in a bit of an unorthodox space, but we're going to get the move done on Kevin Magnussen to put us now up into P11. We kind of shove him off the road on the exit there of the corner, but all fair play in the end. And back to the front of the grid here is Fernando Alonso's turn to be trying to go around Charles Leclerc. He tried on lap 3 and he was not successful. He didn't get the traction down going between turns 5 and 6, but this time around the outside of turn 1 to give him those couple of switchbacks through turns 2 and 3. Does allow him now up into P2. Oscar Piastri is now also looking to try a similar move to what Fernando tried a few laps ago, and around the outside of turn 4. Is he going to be able to make it move? Unlike Fernando Alonso, no, he has to tuck back in behind Leclerc as well. So Leclerc seems to be getting very good traction out of the corners in the opening stages of this race. But for ourselves, we're now tucked in behind Nico Hulkenberg's lap 6 of the Grand Prix, and we've been stuck behind him since we made the move on Kevin Magnussen a few laps ago. And Mark is no different to our opinion either. He immediately wants us to overtake, so I'm going to dump a little bit of ERS, not too much, and immediately complete the objective pretty much before he finish explaining it. And so now that is us up into the points. It's only taken us 6 laps to go from P20 on the grid now up into P10 to try and get some points in this Grand Prix. Lap 7 though, now we're at the front of this train. We don't have any DRS or any sort of slipstream to try and help us, so we have to try and defend to not fall too far behind into this train, because ideally you want to be the second or third car in the train to try and take advantage of any DRS games here. And so we'll tuck back in behind Nico Hulkenberg. As we take a look back towards the front of the field, it is Charles Leclerc wanting to get that P2 back from Fernando Alonso. He's going to try and do the same move that Alonso tried on him, and that is around the outside of turn 1, but it looks like Fernando may just have this one covered off. No, he doesn't. He gets a poor exit out of turn 3, and with the DRS, Charles Leclerc is able to power ahead. But now Oscar Piastri, surely he's got a better shot here at trying to get onto the podium. He sends it down the inside of Fernando Alonso rather than trying the outside as he did to Charles Leclerc, and Oscar's now going to get the better traction, and that is now Oscar up into P3. Fernando falls from P2 all the way down to P4 in just a matter of a few corners. For ourselves though, we're still behind Nico Hulkenberg, trying to find our way and try and break, not only get by him, but break the DRS to the German driver. We're going to use a bit of DRS here, a bit of ERS, and slipstream the driver all the way down to turn 4 here. We're going to swing it around the outside as we've done many times, and this will give us the inside of turn 5, and that is us now back into the top 10. And we've just got to try and find a way to break the DRS here around Mexico, because it is just so strong, especially down the main straight here, as we're about to find out only the next lap to go. And we're not only are we going to get done by Nico Hulkenberg, but his teammates as well to Kevin Magnussen. And Magnussen's also thinking of trying to go around to Nico Hulkenberg. He's going to send it around the outside. They're going to continue going side by side. Can we possibly try and organise a cutback here? And we do. We get the power down nice and early and drop it down an extra gear, and that is us at least past Nico Hulkenberg for now. We're still side by side with Kevin Magnussen as we come down into turn 4. We both got the power DRS here, so it was a very even match going down the straight, but ultimately I've got the better grip on our medium tyres to send it and get Kevin Magnussen, and we're back inside the points. So we've gone from dropping down to P12 back up to P10 in only a few corners, as Piastri's now wanting to try and make this a McLaren 1-2. He is looking to get himself ahead of Charles Leclerc for P2, and that is exactly what he's going to do. He's up into P2. Kevin Magnussen gets by us using the power slipstream here, and that is Magnussen up into P10, so we're outside the top 10 now. George Russell is getting by Fernando Alonso, and not only Fernando Alonso, he's trying to get by Charles Leclerc as well, so George Russell seems to have wicked pace at the moment. Alonso seems to be dropping off an absolute cliff. He was P2 at one point in this Grand Prix, and he's now finds himself down in P5, and we have got a massive issue here. Our rear tyres, at least, are massively overheating, 112 and 110 degrees on the rears, which is proving this S section to be quite difficult. You can see there I'm a little bit ginger on the throttle, especially on the direction changes, because I just can't keep the rear end in tow, and we make a massive mistake locking the rear tyres, nearly crashing into the back of Magnussen, and as soon as we hit the brakes for the next corner, that is now us really badly locking up the rears. There is just absolutely no grip left. We've overheated these tyres so much. it is essentially driving on slicks in the rain. As you can see just how close we got to the back of Kevin Magnussen there, drifting it through this corner here, and then that's what Stroll saw. I was just trying to gather myself up, hit the brakes again, and the rear end immediately spins out from behind me. So we've got some issues here as we fall all the way down to P17, but George Russell, he's looking to get himself now up onto the podium, take that away from Charles Leclerc. He's going to have to go around the outside here at turn 3, and he's going to have the DRS to help him seal the deal, which will make Charles Leclerc vulnerable to Fernando Alonso, who we thought initially had a few issues maybe with the pace that he just seemed to be losing, but he's now going around the outside to try and get himself up into P4. And it seems like he's managed to get a decent amount of traction. He's going to send it here. And is he going to be able to get the move done before they get to this S section away? It's really difficult to go side by side. He does get the move done. So Fernando Alonso back up into P4 now. And for ourselves, we're P17 behind Carlos Sainz. Lots of dirty air and overheating tyres. And we've just got zero grip out here. So I think it is time to come into the box for an early pit stop, as I've just got nothing. I hit the brakes and I was never going to make the corner. I had to bail out, or else I was rear-ending Daniel Ricciardo there. So I've had to bail it out. We're losing so much time. You can see even through the slow speed corners, I am struggling to not only get this thing turned, but then I have to wait so long to be able to get onto the power. So we're going to come into the lane here. It's about 3 laps early than what we were expecting, but in the end, if I can defend well and look after my hard tyres in the early stages of this next stint, hopefully the tyre deficits with this about 3 lap gap shouldn't be too bad. So we're going to try and pump out quick but conservative laps to try and mitigate any excessive tyre wear in our opening stages here, as we take a look at just this train that we were a part of. So we were essentially leading this train here, and that goes from P10 all the way down to P19, so it's a massive absolute train here. And so Stroll is now travelling very slowly. Is he pulling up to the side of the road? He is pulling up to the side of the road, and that is Stroll from P19 out of the race, as we now come up to the scene where Stroll is getting out of the car and retiring from the Grand Prix. At the same time, Mark, he wants us to achieve a nice quick lap time here, even with the yellow flags out. So we're going to keep pushing through these yellows, and they're not double waved yellows, they're only singles at the moment, so we can get away with it. And coming to the end of the lap, we will cross the line to achieve that fast lap time that he was after. It's only about 2 seconds quicker, so we've got really good pace on these hard tyres. But again, we need to make sure that we don't hurt them too much. As now lap 16, the lap we were meant to come in the race leader, Lando Norris, he is in the lane. He has a 6-second lead to his teammate Oscar Piastri, so he'll come in presumably for the hard tyres, and it is the hard tyres going onto the race leader's car, as it seemed like a pretty good stop for himself. Lewis Hamilton, meanwhile, he is looking to try and get himself ahead of a fellow Mercedes driver, Alex Albon. It may be a Williams versus Mercedes, but they both are powered by the same engine, and Lewis Hamilton does make it past Alex Albon. As you can see, there's quite a few battles actually happening up and down the field. So it's Russell now going up into P3. Fernando Alonso has got by Max Verstappen up into P7. So the fact that he was battling Verstappen means that Verstappen either had a really good pit cycle or Alonso had a really bad one. Tsunoda and Magnussen, meanwhile, going side by side. And we're going to set up another cutback here. And we're going to get the power down really nicely once again. They're on a little bit of cold tyres, as they've only just come in for a pit stop about a lap or so ago. And so they ended up being a much easier pass than what we did last time between the two Hasses when we did that cutback. So us on these hard tyres seems to be going really well at the moment, as we get ourselves now back inside the points. And also our teammate has had an absolute ripper pit cycle. He's moved all his way to P9. So at the moment, it is a double Sauber points finish, as Yuki Tsunoda does get himself ahead of us, and you can see there. And Verstappen also back ahead of Fernando Alonso. So just with the use of DRS, Tsunoda gets himself back ahead of us, but we're now only going to do the same thing. It's lap 21 of the Grand Prix. We're going to swing it around the outside at turn 1, and that is as easy as he does it. And hopefully we can try and break away in the DRS, but with our compromised line from having to swing around the outside, we do run a little bit wide at the exit of turn 3. And I was genuinely surprised that wasn't one of our track limit warnings, as we do an order check here. So it's a McLaren 1-2, Norris leads Piastri, then it's George Russell also on the podium at the moment. Then Charles Leclerc, Hamilton, Albon, Verstappen, Alonso, our teammate Bottas in P9, and myself in P10 for a double Sauber points at this rate of the race. Tsunoda, then it's Hulkenberg, the two Alpines of Ocon and Gasly, Sergio Perez, Kevin Magnussen, Logan Sargent, Carlos Sainz, and Daniel Ricciardo last on the road, with Stroll the only non-finisher as it stands in this Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc, though, he is looking to get himself back onto the podium. He has been going up and down inside this top 5, but he is looking to get himself back onto the podium as he goes around the outside of George Russell. He'll give him the inside for turn 2, outside for turn 3, and DRS to finish off the job, and that is him now up onto the podium. But Russell's now vulnerable to his teammate Lewis Hamilton. Is Hamilton going to be able to get the move? He'll get the move done well and truly before the braking zone, so Hamilton will also go up to P4 there. As Tsunoda, just using a bit of DRS there, will also get himself back inside the top 10, so not a massive issue for myself to see him go past us into the top 10, because I know just with some DRS usage, we should be able to get him back pretty easily. We just have to make sure that we don't allow ourselves to get vulnerable to Nico Hülkenberg, who's right behind us, and a closing Pierre Gasly, who's 1.6 back from Nico Hülkenberg. And Hamilton is now back onto the podium as he gets by Leclerc. George Russell is looking to go by Leclerc as well. So it seems to be that if you're leading going into turn 1, you could possibly lose another position by the time you get to turn 4. And it is George Russell who's going to be able to keep his nose up the inside there, but he's not going to get the traction down needed. And Charles Leclerc is going to hang on to P4 at the very least. Back on board with ourselves here. I was mentioning just before, we can't let ourselves be vulnerable to Nico Hülkenberg. We do let ourselves be vulnerable, but we managed to outbrake him so we don't lose a position. And while all of that was going on, Mark wants us to achieve an average lap time now, thinking that we'll be all over the shop. But I would imagine that if we're going to be swapping DRS and all of those fun things, as George Russell makes it quite an unusual overtake. As I said when I made the overtake there, you don't see very many overtakes there, let alone from the AI as well. So a very nice move around the outside there on Charles Leclerc to get himself up into P4, but Leclerc doesn't want to sit behind this Mercedes at all. He's going immediately for the move again on George Russell, and this should be able to get him up into P4 again. He's going to have the DRS down this straight, but that will leave George Russell vulnerable to Alex Albon. This is going to be, but Alex Albon is unable to make it past George Russell. George Russell very good at his defending here, as Max Verstappen has got an engine failure. Max Verstappen, the championship leader by only 12 points, has got a massive engine failure. He was inside the points. His title rival, Lando Norris, is currently leading the race quite dominantly by 8 seconds, and this, surely, if it was to finish like this, Lando Norris will be leading the World Championship, and that is going to be a massive, massive swing in this World Drivers' Championship coming into the tail end, because after this race, it is only going to be 4 races and 2 sprint races, I believe it's going to be. So it is very much all to play for still in this World Drivers' Championship, as George Russell is looking to use DRS to get himself ahead of Charles Leclerc here. He's going to have to go the long way around the turn 4, which will give him the inside for turn 5. Is he going to be able to keep this going? No, he can't. Charles Leclerc gets the better traction. He will keep P4 for now. Myself, though, we've got DRS on Yuki Tsunoda. Are we going to be able to make the move around the outside of turn 1, which is really proving to be the most dominant overtaking opportunity, because it gives you the inside here at turn 2, and we get the move done by the time we make it to turn 3, and we're going to have the DRS to help defend from Yuki if he was to try and attack us back into turn 4 there. And this battle at the front just continues to rage on as George Russell wants to get himself back ahead of Charles Leclerc here, and he tried again a few laps ago, and it did not work with Charles Leclerc getting the better traction, but it looks like this time the move is well and truly sealed and done with the DRS, and Alex Albon here is also looking to try and get himself ahead, but once again, Alex Albon unable to get himself past, so even with the DRS, he is unable to get by that Ferrari. And while all that was happening, Nico Hülkenberg did manage to make an overtake here to get himself further up inside the top 10, so that was on Yuki Tsunoda to get himself right behind us into P10, and we managed to achieve that average lap time that Mark was wanting us to do, so we're trying to stay nice and consistent for him, as we do lose the position to Nico Hülkenberg. But again, I am not too phased, because I just know if I can stick with him, I will be able to get the DRS off of him once again to make the move, and that is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to use the DRS, slipstream our way, and we're going to swing it around the outside of turn 1 here. But Nico actually does keep it around us for a lot longer than I was expecting, which caught me a tad off guard, but in the end, we do overcome the defense from Nico Hülkenberg, and that is us back up into P9, so it looks like it's going to be a decent points haul here for the team if it remains like this. Pierre Gasly, he's looking though to try and get himself inside the top 10 for the first time this race, and he's going to be going side by side with Nico Hülkenberg, which is going to be great news for us, because that means we're going to be able to break DRS. It's 2.5 seconds nearly now to Pierre Gasly here in P10, but unfortunately our pace with going onto the hards so early on, 3 laps early on, compared to when a lot of the other drivers started coming into the pit lane at the very least, Gasly is able to overcome that gap, and he has now overtaken us for P9. So hopefully we can try and use the DRS once again to get ourselves ahead of him. As Charles Leclerc, again, this battle between Russell and Leclerc has been going on for the entire race. Leclerc wanting to get himself ahead of this Mercedes once more, and surely, as it has been for the entire race here, he's going to use the DRS to get himself ahead. But this time, Alex Albon has managed to get himself a side-by-side with the car ahead of him after a battle in front, and he's going to send it down the inside at turn 5. Is he going to get the traction down? No, he can't get the traction down, so he got one step closer this time around to try and get that move done for P5, but he just can't do it. But Lando Norris, an absolute massive race for him in the World Drivers' Championship. He'll cross the line to claim victory in Mexico. And Oscar Piastri, 11.5 seconds behind, he will cross the line to finish P2. So McLaren are going to claim a 1-2 here in Mexico. Lewis Hamilton, he's also going to be on the podium here. He rounds the final corner to take a really good P3 here. So back-to-back podiums for the British driver. And for ourselves, we've realistically got one more prime overtaking opportunity, using a little bit of DRS here down this small straight, and we're going to swing it around the outside, dumping all of the ERS we've got, and we get the move done, just keep it within track limits, and that is going to be us up into P9 and around Pierre Gasly to claim one more championship point in this first season of ours, and it has been one of the most hard-fought 2 points, I reckon, of my Formula 1 career to date.
Go for Lando Norris as he takes the checkered flag and wins.
And this performance today, Crofty, really goes a long way to keeping their championship hopes alive. It hasn't been an easy season for them so far this year, but this drive today was impeccable. A job well done.
Our drivers are making their way out for the podium celebrations, and it's going to be McLaren picking up the winner's trophy. Congratulations to the entire team for that fantastic performance.
And that is the Mexican Grand Prix, all done and dusted for Season 1 of our driver career. Yeah, an absolutely massive race win for Lando Norris. Not just the fact that it was pure dominance, winning by 11.5 seconds, but the fact that his title rival, Max Verstappen, did not finish with reliability issues. So this will obviously make Lando Norris the Drivers' Championship leader, but by how much will it make him? As we take a look at the rest of the top 10, Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Alex Albon, Fernando Alonso, Bottas claiming some points for the team in P8, and myself in P9 making a double points finish for Sauber, and Pierre Gasly rounds out the top 10. And with Verstappen's DNF, it does mean, as I mentioned before that, Lando will be leading the Drivers' Championship, so that's absolutely huge for the series. And Stroll is also the other non-finisher, and as confirmed here, Lando Norris leads now by 13 points to Max Verstappen, and Piastri continues to close the gap in P3. He's only 75 points behind now, and myself in P8, 8 points behind George Russell. Bottas, P17, 9 points behind Tsunoda. McLaren, they lead the Constructors' Championship by 134 points to Red Bull, so McLaren seem, I would say McLaren have got this championship wrapped up for the Constructors. Ferrari sit P3, 199 points behind, and Sauber, we're P6. As we take a look at the driver ratings now, so experience has gone up, our racecraft is to level 87, awareness to level 84, pace to level 86, and our focus is up with an overall level of 85. Our recognition has remained at 48%. I don't think that's going to change with the team expecting us to be leaving for RB at the end of the season. And since we did not finish ahead of Bottas, we lost some points to the power unit consultant, but overall still plenty of points for our specialists. So if you did enjoy this episode, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode where we go to Sao Paulo for the Brazilian Grand Prix. I'll see you then.